Hey yo, and welcome to the AWO Journeyman podcast, where losses were going to be the trend of the week, but it turns out it's only for Carlton and Freo fans as Collingwood got themselves over the line against the Dons. I am JD, returning this week after attending the comedy festival.
And I'm better than ever. Got a knack for making things better.
I had to throw that in there.
God, I love that song. So I am back after attending the comedy festival, only to watch two Carlton games that could have been a part of the comedy festival. I thought you might enjoy that one. Joining me as always is Nate, who, as you can see, is probably looking up right now if you can donate eyes to Pendlebury, just in case it's a bit serious. Nate, how you doing?
I'm getting there. Given our injury concerns, I wouldn't be surprised if Pendlebury's out for the whole season with an ACL injury.
Nate, let's talk some footy.
We got to start off shit, don't we?
Well, actually, before I start, I think what I wanted to start off with is something a little bit fun. Was the comedy festival. Rather than you starting straight into football. I mean, I've been going for like the last week and a half at the comedy festival, 2 weeks, and real good comedy festival as usual. You joined me for a show on our Thursday night for Luke Heggie. Tell us what you thought about Luke Heggie.
I just love a comedian that shows no bias, that just rips into absolutely everything and anything. And that's exactly what he did. What I loved about this show as well is I felt like I was the second smallest person there in attendance. It was a tall crowd.
It was a tall crowd. I was certainly the shortest person there. So 10, 9, 69 played, nice. 17, 16, 118 choice with that score from Freo at least. One positive that they've got, so I'm going for a little bit something different, going for some positive, negative stuff, but one positive that they've got, I think, is Sarong's year. Caleb Sarong is putting together one hell of a year at the moment, and especially he's going to have to probably do a little bit more. Did Brayshaw get suspended for?
No, he got off.
He got off, so there we go. So, but he wasn't gonna. He was looking like he might have to carry the team there for a few weeks. But it's good to see that they have Brody back in as well. But Sarong, I think, has been the real standout for this year. But their forward connection has let them down this year. It's the real negative of this year in general. But their forward connection specifically on Friday was awful. It's absolutely letting this club down. And it's what's destroying them, I think, because they're not exactly losing, I think, everywhere on the ground. I think it's mainly when they go inside 50. And I do think that there's a lot of comparisons between what they're doing and what Carlton's doing at the moment in terms of slow ball movement and not being able to connect with the forwards. But the problem is we have forwards. They don't. So, yeah, it's a definite interesting. Oh, fuck me. I'm back, boys. It's definitely interesting. And it's, you know what? I've been watching enough footy shows that the word interesting is thrown around. And what was the other one that I kept hearing a lot?
Was it perplexed?
Perplexed gets thrown around way too much. Everyone is way too perplexed. But
interesting, perplexed.
Interesting, perplexed. There's just interesting is the word that is thrown around a lot, or dumbfounded, I think, is the other one. But yeah, what do you think of Freo's year so far in terms of this game? I think condensed their whole year, losing at home by such a big margin.
There was a moment in the game. Sean Darcy was bumped off a marking contest by Caleb fucking Daniel. If that doesn't symbolize their season so far, I don't know what does.
Oh God, it's even funnier. So because again, I mentioned I went to the comedy festival for a lot of while a lot of these shows were on, games were on. So I watched a lot of the mini games, and you want to laugh? That was a highlight in that game, and I was laughing my ass off at the fact that they singled that out. Of course you're going to. I mean, it's a big man getting bumped off a ball by Caleb Daniel. So, yeah, that does sum it up. It really does.
As far as Freo's season goes, it's not just the forward lines. There is a little bit of everything going on in it. More so, this Darcy-Jackson combo just isn't working like we all expected to. It does take a bit of time, but it is holding them back. I was a bit harsh with my comments in the group chat Friday night when I'm like, does Luke Jackson give a fuck? Because it does feel like he's playing with a bit of complacency at the moment. It just seems like he's come over to Perth, he's got his premiership, he's done his thing in life.
He's also got his money.
Exactly. It'd probably take a bit of time for Jackson to get into it. But again, as far as the combination goes, nothing wrong with Sean Darcy. Could very well sneak into anyone's rolling All-Australian side. We like to joke about that. But yeah, Luke Jackson, thumbs down from him. All of the forward line, thumbs down. Sorry, Bailey Banfield, he's a part of that, unfortunately.
Not a good week.
I don't think Freo's got a genuine good third midfielder. I don't think Will Brodie's that guy. O'Meara's not that guy. It's harsh to say this, but it feels like David Mundy right now could be better than Brodie or O'Meara right now.
You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
I'm not like that with Will Brodie. I do think them chopping and changing their sides not helping either. You lose the trust of the playing group as well as cohesion and chemistry. Nothing wrong with their defense, but the way these losses are going on, they got Brisbane next week. I wouldn't be surprised if they start leaking goals. That's how bad it's getting. And that's just the playing group. I do have question marks already on Alex Pearce as a captain and question marks over Justin Longmuir as a coach. Justin Longmuir is a tactical coach. We all know this. He's very monotone. No real personality involved. That's nothing too harsh on him, unfortunately. Doesn't do live interviews. I found out a couple of weeks ago. Doesn't do live interviews. Always does it pre-recorded. And they also gave him shit for sitting on the boundary line, coaching his players when he's not that sort of coach. I don't think he's copying other coaches. It's just he's trying to get to the players. He's trying to communicate a little bit better. He's learning a few things, but right now, Freo for me is the most disappointing side for 2023 so far.
I couldn't agree more. I think even though I'm getting a bit, I think potentially, again, we'll go into it later, potentially we're heading down that track, but also, yeah, Freo are my big losers of this year so far. Not impressed with the old flag mantle. It's quite sad because we as a group absolutely adore Freo. I think one thing that does stand out in this podcast is that we're a primarily Victorian-based podcast who talks so much about a WA club. But I just want to see them get right the ship a little bit. They're definitely a lot better than this. But as you mentioned, there's some big holes. And I think I said this last year when they went through the trade period. I thought they were cutting too deep with their depth and, who they, letting Mundy, having Mundy retire and everything like that. I thought they cut real deep into their list. And now I think it's really starting to show that what they brought back in wasn't enough. The Dogs, on the other hand, they've really got their year on track. They were heading down a real nasty path those first few weeks, and they've really steadied the ship to get themselves right. Dogs are looking the goods again. All of a sudden, Luke Beveridge can coach. Everyone's happy down in Footscray. I'm sure the vibe's a little bit better.
It actually is. It actually feels a lot better.
Everyone starts
less crime.
The only concern we have for the Dogs, and I couldn't think of any real negatives for this game, because how can you really pick apart a game where, Freo decided to go after Rory Lobb instead of, the entire Bulldogs team. Basically, I think I'm a bit worried. I'm still worried about their midfield depth. So Bontempelli, he's basically put that team on his back this year. He's doing it all. Libbard went down, I believe, with an injury. So,
Yeah,
the depth is going to start to be the depth is going to be tested, I guess. But I know he has entered the concussion protocol. So, yeah, going to be testing, I think, the depth over the year to see how well the Dogs can go in that area. I'm sure they've got enough players that can go through there. But it's good to see that they've worked out that forward line, back line synergy. But the problem I also have is they do still have some players sitting in the twos that absolutely should be in their ones.
Yeah, not happy with Freo targeting lob instead of, getting themselves back into the game. The next home, a little bit. Oh, not just a little bit. Oh, no, before the game started, before the siren started. In that third quarter, they showed clips of 6 Freo players targeting lob when the play was still going on, but pretty much leading to a goal. It kind of did change the game as well at that stage. So if Freo want to target X players, be my guest. They've got Hawthorn at home in 2 weeks. If you want to target Lloyd Meek instead of win a game against fucking Hawthorn, go for it. But
feel free to
fake bravado. I don't like fake bravado. That's just sorry, Freo. I love yous, but fake bravado, no, can't do it.
Feel free to send everybody to the wing to take on Blake Acres against us, so then we can just absolutely pound on goals against you guys. Because if that's how they're going to act with their former players, then it's a little bit ridiculous. I mean, yeah, Lob may have said a few things on the way out of the club, especially if you've watched Show Me the Money.
He bought a house.
He bought a house in Victoria. He did it. He did the club dirty. But at the end of the day, also, like, we've seen a lot worse from a lot worse players, and Freo went a bit too extreme by going at him a bit too hard.
But getting back to the Dogs, there's this talk about who's the best player in the competition right now. People throw up Nick Dacos already, but they don't want to go down forward and go Jeremy Cameron. I personally think Bontempelli is the best player in the comp. Mr. Consistence reminds me a bit of Pendlebury as well. Just very silky, a lot of contested footy as well. Tackles, kicks goals, does everything. Perfect leader as well. And if they're going to make finals again, it's because of him. And it's good for the Dogs as well. They've got Libber out due to head. But Bailey Smith will likely come back in. But Bailey Smith does need to step up. Less infield or inside mid grunts with Libber out. But they'll probably find it with Bonds, McRae, and a few people running through again. McRae had 14 clearances in this game as well, which I think was a club record for the Dogs.
He is the guy who gets a casual 30 every week, and nobody talks about him because Bontempelli and it used to be Dunkley that everyone used to talk about in front of him. And it's funny how he's still somehow the silent operator
after all these years. I don't know what to say about Freo. They've got Brisbane next week. Have fun at the Gabba or the Gabbatoir. But then you got Hawthorn at home. You lose those 2 games, forget it. And the Dogs have Hawthorn next week, which, they've got the momentum, they've got the form, but it can be a bit of a tricky test, kind of like a shit test for the Dogs.
Speaking of shit tests.
I was going to say the same thing. Speaking of one shit heap out west.
To another. Port versus the Eagles. 16-3, 109, 10-9, 69. Nice. Way to go, WA teams. Just giving us some nice scores this week. Port Adelaide absolutely steamrolled the Eagles in the end. And the poor Eagles have somehow managed to get another injury to a body part that wasn't even affected.
Who was this one?
It was Shuey. Shuey did his ankle.
I think it was more of a management thing. He did it very early and then got subbed off in the third quarter. But still, it's another Luke Shuey injury, death and taxes. So
this club cannot catch a break when it comes to injuries. But I think it needs to be spoken about that for 3 years, a club has been severely injured with not much talk around. Now, I know it could be more spoken about in WA. This is where we need our resident WA boy to sort of fill us in. But it's something that should be spoken about a lot more, that realistically 3 years of football, and they've been sooking their way through those 3 years as well. But yeah, 3 years of football have been lost to injury and sickness because of, or the COVID, or the thing, I should say, the thing that happened. the thing we went through. And we can't all deny that they sooked their way through the thing and through the hubs and whatnot. They sooked. I could not believe that during the week we saw them sook their way through Gather Round and say that we deserve an extra game in WA because we're the big bad Eagles, and we deserve a bigger game in WA because we're disadvantaged. Like, get over it. Like, you know why they're mad, and it's because Gather Round is in South Australia for the next couple of years. You absolutely know that rubbed the Eagles the wrong way. It's good to see that Freo once again are just playing the silent, like they're probably pissed off at just as well, but also are just probably playing it like, all right, don't say anything, just play it silent. It's all good. Like, it will be the Gather Round will eventually be in WA, and it will be good to when it's there. But also at the moment, we don't need it in WA. We're two absolute. Could you imagine if Gather Round was in WA last weekend? Like the Eagles and Freo, like the way they've been playing. Yeah. Could you imagine like how they've been playing, like having them on the showcase? Like, thank God the Adelaide, which I can say from shout out to Adelaide, they absolutely decimated us. So, at least like it was, they put on a showcase for the two South Australian teams, whereas I don't think that would have happened for the WA teams if it was in their state. One good thing for the Eagles is some of these kids are really coming through. Was it Jai Cully?
Yep.
He, looked good on the big stage. They're finding their kids. It's good. I mean, they're being forced to, but it's good to see that their draft hand from last year is actually a pretty good crop of talent, and from previous years. So it's not all hope is lost for the Eagles. It's just now we're starting to see it's going to be a hell of a lot longer of a process with these senior players that are so injured at the moment.
If I go on a date with someone and they ghost me or they stand me up, it's a shit feeling, right? If it happens over and over and over again, you would think at some point something's got to change. Something has to give. You may have to start looking internally and see what's going on. Why is this happening? That's the Eagles right now with their injuries. It's not just luck. It's not even coincidence. If it's happening since the second half of 2021, all of 2022, and so far all of 2023, they've got to look internally with these injuries. Now, they are a travelling side. That does contribute it, whether we want to admit that or not. Interstate clubs and fans will say that, and I agree with it. As someone that has studied sports science, that is a genuine thing. And I know the Eagles, when they first came to the AFL, would complain about travel. So it's nice to see them complaining about it yet again. I'm sure old fans will be like, oh, it's the same old Eagles, but they're a successful club. They'll get over it. They don't stay down for too long. But as far as the injuries goes, and they're a young side as well, it's going to take a bit of time. So get used to it. Get used to the rebuild. But as far as this game goes, it was the same as last week in Adelaide. Just good first quarter in it, but still slightly behind. But then second quarter blitz ended the game at halftime. We do mention Cully kicking 4 goals and Bailey Williams in the ruck, even though he's their only ruckman. Slight positives there. You can mention Kelly and Gaff if you want. Ginby, tough as nails yet again. Oscar Allen is quietly putting together a nice season, and he's kicked 16 goals. Yeah, he's up there in terms of the Coleman medal race, but way behind guys like Curnow and Cameron. Port Adelaide. The funny thing as well with this game, I remember last year's game, Port and West Coast. It was about similar margin. Finlayson kicked 5 goals, I think, and Rosie had a career best game. This game, Finlayson kicks 5 goals and Rosie has a career best game. So rinse and repeat. Kelly Underwood on commentary. Not much else to go over. Port Adelaide's got 3 wins in a row. They got St Kilda Friday night at Marvel. If they want to prove to the competition that they are a genuine side and Ken Hinkley can stay on, you got to win these games against St Kilda.
Just Port's big day out was all I was thinking. That's all I was thinking. It was just like, it's Port's big day out. They had a big day. They packed the lunches and they had a big day.
They had a feast.
They did. They had a big feast on the Eagles, which Speaking of feasting on the competition, the Lions. Did I miss something last week? Was Simba out this week, or was it more of Mufasa? Do you think?
Oh no, Charlie Cameron was Mufasa.
He was. He really was. 7-goal Charlie. What a star of the competition he is. I mean, the old brum brum with his motorcycle.
Take me home.
Country road. He is a absolute star of this competition. He is
what do they call fire?
On fire. He's on fire is our version of butts in seats. He is an on fire player. On fire. He puts basically, I feel like he is worth the price of admission half the time, just to watch. It used to be like when Eddie Betts was rolling around, and it felt like he was, like this is the early days. End of career Eddie was still worth watching, but definitely early days was Eddie was worth the price of admission, and that seems like the case with Charlie Cameron. The problem with the Lions, I still feel, is their best to worst is God, it's so on show. Like,
okay,
it's funny.
Mesa?
Yeah, it's funny. The Simba, it's funny. The Simba versus Mufasa comparison that had me absolutely cackling last week while listening to the podcast was he's not wrong though, and I think it was shown in this game that they're best and worst at times. Like their best was destroying the Giants all over the field. But then they have their little lulls, and it almost looked like their worst. And then all of a sudden, the Giants would just surge back into it and start playing some good footy again. Yeah, Mufasa versus Simba is a real thing, and I think we should be looking at it throughout the whole year. I'm not convinced on them either. When you're beating the Giants by, what is it, 21 points, 21. When you're beating them by 21 points, it's unconvincing to me. So, yeah, their best to worst is still something to worry about. A couple of positives. Positive for the Giants is at least Tom Green's back next week for them. So, like, that gives them another bit of grunt in the midfield. Arguably could have helped them. I don't think he completely helps win them the game, but definitely would have helped having him out there on the field. But the negative definitely was having Taylor do a hammy, and a major hammy from what I understand as well. Is it a 10-weeker or something like that?
They were saying 2 to 3 months. That's a high hamstring injury for him. So have fun, Giants, and it's going to be on their midfield to really save them, as well as a functioning forward line. Hogan needs to get some consistency back. Himmelberg can fly and take ripper marks and kick goals all he wants, but they need some cohesion down forward. Giants won the disposal count in this game plus 97, and 11 players had 20 plus disposals, yet they didn't really use too much of it. A lot of it was a bit of junk time as well. Brisbane, they're a clearance side, and then they convert down forward, as we saw with Charlie Cameron. So if it doesn't work for Cameron, it's Danaher and Hipwood that step up, and then we see Rayner down forward now. He'll step up. So I don't have issues with Brisbane's forward line or their midfield at all. Defensively, there's a bit of an issue, especially with their height. But again, they're slowly bridging the gap between their best and their worst. So it's still a question mark, but it's still good enough to get them into finals yet again and obviously push for a flag for once.
So you're saying slowly we're getting towards the end of the movie where Simba grows up. And if they win the grand final or something like that, we'll have like end of the movie Simba sort of thing.
I was thinking more Stephen King, Cujo. They'll get rabies, they'll dominate the league, and then they'll get shot at the end.
Cujo. Shout out to Stephen King movies. You've hit a nerve there. All of them sitting there. I'm like, ooh, horror. Let's talk horror.
I'm trying to appeal to the ladies of this podcast.
Ooh, horror. Let's talk horror. Speaking of horror, Cats vs Swans.
Oh,
good one.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What is your worst horror movie number 2? So basically, there's a good horror movie, then there's a shit sequel.
Oh, like a shit sequel to a horror movie. Oh shit. You got Question Without Notice as well, and you put me on the spot there. There's plenty out there, and I can't think of them off the top. Oh no, okay. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Although some people love it, I'm not.
It's not me. I hate it.
Yeah, not the biggest fan of it. So especially compared to the first one. So yeah, there's a good example for you. Texas Chainsaw 2.
Because that was this game, Geelong v Sydney Saturday night. It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 of footy.
It was. So 2010, 130, played 5-7, 37.
Carbon copy.
Yeah. Cats with an absolute demolition.
It was such a carbon copy that Tom Papley nearly kicked a final quarter goal to reduce the margin to 80-something points.
You would have gone off if he had done that.
When it happened, I thought, please kick it. I have a video to upload, but no.
I have a video ready. Do we say Cats are back to their best? Is the hangover over? Especially when you've got that many games left at GMHBA?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It's for both sides, I don't know. Cats have the games at GMHBA. Swans will have their players come back in. I don't know. We're a quarter of the way into the season, and I don't know with these two.
Yeah. They're especially as I can say, how is it funny to watch the two grand finals of last year and not know where they both sit still? Because Sydney, a lot of people, I don't know if you saw Fox Footy during the week, but they had put up a post where it's that the premiership window that had Essendon and Sydney in it. And yeah, Sydney is so called in the premiership window, Cats aren't, and Cats have come out and done exactly what they did last year in the grand final. Now, we're not playing finals, of course, it's round 6, but at the end of the day, what an absolute demolition. It's like, I didn't get to make the joke last week where it's like Adelaide, Carlton said to Adelaide, hey, remember round 20 last year? Yeah, let's do that again. I genuinely feel like Swans called up Cats during the week and said, hey, remember the grand final from last year? Yeah, let's do that again. Because that's what it felt like. It just felt like, let's carbon copy this thing. My biggest negative on the Cats, now, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this. I'm not sure if you're going to agree with this, but that fucking stadium needs to be fucking finished.
I owe you an apology. They were meant to be in stage 5 development. That does not look stage 5. Usually it'd be done. It's just, it needs a tick of approval. It's not even close to being done. So I owe you and everyone an apology.
I just do not understand why the AFL has said, yep, you're allowed to play games down there while that development is going on. It's not like Marvel is not affected. So Marvel's currently going under development as well and is nowhere near as affected as GMHBA. It is the weirdest ground to watch. The only entertaining thing about it is the fact that we're watching one tradie collect the footballs. That's my favorite part of the whole experience down at GMHBA. You almost want to see if you can get yourself down there with a bib on just to see if you can get yourself behind the goals. But it's something that's just going to grind my gears, I think, for the rest of there's 7 other games there this year. It's going to grind my gears, especially if we're not seeing development happen throughout that time. Like, imagine if we're just not seeing anything develop, and I'm just going to get more and more mad throughout that time.
That's going to be what? 36 points gifted to the Cats to make finals. Oh, and I would have thought Sydney would have prepared for this one. You want to talk about one narrow ground, so is the SCG, but
yeah.
The Swans were just way undersized. Obviously, injuries hurting their spine.
Injuries did hurt them.
When Callum Mills has to play lockdown on Tom Hawkins, it's not going to work. And Robbie Fox has gone down with an injury as well, so even worse for him. But they'll have these players fully come back in the next week or two. I've got no positives for the Swans out of this game. It was their worst loss of this century.
I have one positive, and it's not even a positive that's from the game. It's just more of a general thing that they're doing. It's good to see Will Gould getting games. It's not even
Super Coach God.
Yeah, the Super Coach God. It's just good to see him getting games. Like, forget about the whole Super Coach thing. It's just nice to see the guy playing. As sub both weeks, though. So he's going to obviously he's not even close to being their best 22, which says a lot. but he's a solid player. Definitely think that he's going to be somebody he's going to get picked up somewhere and just turn himself into an absolute star. Swans love to do that with some of their secondary players. But you said before that your favorite player in the competition is Bontempelli. Mine is I'm officially ready to say it. It's Jezza Cameron. I love watching him play. Like watching him play live against Carlton was where I was like, oh, he's just such a star. And now he's just getting better and better each week. And 100 is a absolute possibility for him.
It is mathematically, but I don't want to mention it now because I feel like in 2 weeks' time he'll be kept to just 1 or 2 goals the next fortnight, and we're not talking about it. So
Charlie's already falling out of that conversation.
Exactly. So I want to hold off a bit. Let's see how he goes come the buy round. If he's hit 50 or 60 by the time he hits his buy round, then I think it's on.
It's on, yeah, for sure. I think we're all just trying to wish it into existence because we want to see Jez kick 100. And it would be beautiful. I mean, I want to wish Charlie kicking 100 into existence because I think no matter what, I will be there. So, yeah, like you said, not too much to say about this game. I don't think it's worth touching on too much more. Cats just steamroll the Swans once again and start to develop a bit of a number over them.
I know the Cats have the Dons on Sunday Arvo round 7. Again, I still don't know. As we'll touch on with Essendon, they seem like a side that exists to fuck up your footy tips. So I don't know how Geelong's going to go against Essendon there. And the Swans have GWS. What's their rivalry called? The Battle of the Bridge.
Battle of the Bridge, mate.
That's the worst. It's the worst name for it.
Considering their showdown, Derby?
Yeah.
The Queensland clash is pretty bad. The Q clash. The Q clash, and no wonder Queenslanders and New South Wales don't get into football when you got the Q clash and Battle of the Bridge.
Oh yeah, we're gonna battle for the fucking Sydney Harbour Bridge. What a fucking concept that is.
Oh jeez, that is awful. Speaking of not awful, Hawthorn versus Crows. I went back to watch the replay. I got to catch a decent chunk of this game actually, especially the last 10 minutes, which was awesome to watch. But 11-10-76 plays 11-13-79. The Crows just get over the line against Hawthorn, who put up a valiant effort. It was down in Tasmania. An absolute valiant effort against Crows, who came out last week, decimated Carlton, really announced themselves to the competition. And yeah, they gave them a bit of like you sort of mentioned before, a bit of a headache team at the moment, Hawks. I do think they'll run out of steam near the end of the year. So if you're getting them closer to the end of the year, you're less likely to potentially lose to them. But at the moment, they're every chance to win some of these games, no matter who they're up against. They just got belief. One sad thing from the game, and you'll hate this because we do just like the guy. Max Lynch, another concussion, so potentially with a head. But potentially he, now it's looking a bit more serious and potentially could be considering his position in football. So best wishes to Max Lynch. Hopefully all is well. Hopefully we get to see him back out on the football field. One of the funniest Instagrams you'll ever see. So definitely go give him a follow and send him your well wishes if you can. But yeah, so close so far for the Hawks. They got really close to beating him, but Darcy Fogarty has ice in the veins, cunt. His veins. He's a bit of a deadeye, isn't he? I got to see it firsthand last week. He loved playing Carlton, but I'll tell you what, he liked playing yesterday as well. On Saturday as well.
Sunday.
Sunday. I'm all over the shop with my days.
Interesting.
But yeah, he absolutely killed it. He's become a bit of a deadeye for Adelaide. Do think it's arguable to have the conversation that they have the best forward line in the comp. But I do also think that forward line can chop and change a little bit too much for my liking. So till it settles completely, then we'll go, yep, 100%. And you also remember this is a forward line where Taylor Walker's going to drop out at some point. So let's just hold our breath on them being the best forward line in the comp, because there are other forward lines out there that are playing better than them. But, it's nothing against the Adelaide Crows. I do think they're playing some absolutely ripper football. But
Ripper.
But yeah, it was a shame for the Hawks. They sort of let it go in the end. They couldn't run out the game and just couldn't get themselves over the line. But a lot of positives for them to take out. I remember being in that position, and you just sort of take the positives with the negatives, because I think there was a lot more positives to take out of that game than negatives, and you just learn how to win off of things like that. So, yeah, well done to Hawthorn, well done to Adelaide.
Well done to Hawthorn, 88 tackles, best team performance in terms of tackles for any side so far this season. So their effort and intensity is there. It's going to drop off eventually this season. That's what happens with a young side. Jai Newcomb, hands down, or in my opinion, the best mid-season draft pickup ever. I know Tigers fans will say Marlon Pickett, but Newcomb in terms of
some Collingwood fans may argue Johnny Noble.
No, I disagree now. Even stats as well in this game. So good teams find a way to win, and that's what Adelaide did. This was a shit test game for them, and they only just passed it. They've got Collingwood Sunday twilight, then Geelong in Geelong. If they win those two games, then I'm putting my hand up and saying they're playing finals. It's going to be a tricky fortnight for them. They've got Collingwood off a 5-day break. I'll mention that in that game. But they haven't won in Geelong since 2003. So things to work. They haven't been Collingwood in like 7 or 8 attempts as well. So they've got to break a few hoodoos there to keep their winning momentum going and to push again for finals. But again, good teams find a way. That's exactly what they did here. And it's good to see it's not their senior players in terms of Tex and Sloan. In this game it was, but so far this season it hasn't been off Tex and Sloan and all their senior players. It's guys like Rochelle, Rankin coming in, Phil Thorpe as well. Hopefully he doesn't get drops, even though he's not kicking goals lately. Need to keep him in the side for stability. And surprisingly, that their defense is slowly getting into it. There's still question marks with their defense, kind of like Adelaide or kind of like Brisbane, but we'll see how they go later in the season, where they're at come by round. But they're pushing for finals, and yeah, let's see how they go. Did you see Connor Nash's tackle on Sligo?
Oh, did I ever?
Here comes the boom.
Did I ever? I was going to say he dumped him. It was beautiful. It's funny how everyone say the tackle's dead, and then Connor Nash pulls out something like that.
Collingwood beating St Kilda. Sorry to say, but we've got the winning formula.
We'll talk about it. All right. Carlton versus Saints, 8-12-60, plays 12-10-82.
Only 45,000 at Marvel. I thought it could have been 50,000, but very disappointing there. Very disappointing that Jesse Motlop got suspended. I didn't write this down or anything. I just thought nothing of it. Gets suspended. I am pissed. I am dejected.
Yeah, actually, let's start straight off with that, because that is something that needs to be talked about immediately, because that was a Can we just all admit that was a beautiful tackle from a young player who, if you're going to play up for free kicks and start dumping your own head into the ground, which even BT, it was one of the few things that BT said nice about Carlton. Yeah. Ooh, I'm not even arrowing and I'm just pissed off because it's not suspendable. It wasn't a free kick at the time. It was play on. It's not suspendable. We're going to challenge that one. If I swear to God, if that one's not let off, then there's something wrong. We need serious clarification with what's going on in the competition with tackling, because it is confusing as all hell. And we need to find out what's required. What's required of these players? Are they not meant to tackle hard anymore? Because to me, that was a perfectly executed tackle from Jesse. And now Jess has got to sit out another week. It affects us again. We're losing some very crucial players again at some very crucial games. Next week is probably one of those games we can afford to lose, Jess. But again, knowing us, we'll find a way, potentially to stuff that one up. So, yeah, as you can sort of tell as a Carlton fan, I'm a bit pissed off at the moment. It's something that I don't even know where to put my finger on where the issues are. We're going slow. We're not the same team as last year. We're not the bullies we were. We've only done it. We've only bullied one team this year, which was Geelong. And even then, we stopped bullying them midway through the game. We haven't played out anywhere close to a full game. I know I've seen a lot of fans saying we just need to be played into form. I will say, I'm going to call out fans that are saying that we need to sack Voss. I am sick and tired of Carlton sacking coaches. So if we don't persist with a damn coach, I'm going to lose my damn shit. So Voss, yes, there maybe he's got some issues in his game plan, but isn't that what being a coach is? Adjusting on the fly, working things out. I do think for us, it's now just playing into form. The pieces are there. Everything's just got to come together. We're playing a bit of a different style to everyone else. I think if we sort of start to incorporate a bit more of everyone else's style into our game, we could actually be a bit more of a deadly team to play. But at the moment, we are slow, inaccurate, and just aren't doing enough damage in games, throughout games to put away teams, especially the last fortnight. I mean, don't even get me started on the 8-goal start against Adelaide. That was the hardest 10 minutes of football to watch as a Carlton fan since like 2017. But I feel like the only positive thing we've had to look at for the past 2 weeks has been Sam Walsh. The fact that you did it for me last week. The fact that Sam Walsh has come back into the side and been basically best on 2 weeks in a row. I shouldn't say, I don't think he was best on this week. I think Ches played an absolute amazing 100th, which congratulations to Adam Chera. He, absolutely, I can say it this week without repercussions. But yeah, I think he played an absolute ripper. 100th game, but Walshy's return the last fortnight's been great to watch. But I got to give it up to the Saints. They're a defensive beast. They're very hard to score against. It was goal for goal. They've made some of the most subpar players, I should say, in the competition look like absolute gems. I always knew, and I'm glad Carlton fans didn't boo Liam Stocker.
Little boos, but nothing.
Little boos, but you could probably tell that fans around them were probably also saying "shut up" because this is a guy that was absolutely beloved by the Carlton faithful. It's hard to see him running around in a St Kilda jersey playing so well because he is somebody who it's like Paddy Dow. We need to start. We need to be doing some things a little bit different. I think, especially with a lot of these injuries, I think we're too set in our ways. I don't think Voss looks at swinging the hammer. He looks at bringing players in for 1-2 weeks and then drops them, sort of like Johnny Longmire with his dropping of Bailey Banfield. He almost brings in a player for a scapegoat, to be a scapegoat, and then just drops them, brings the next player in, sort of thing. But I think there's certain players that we have sitting in our twos, like a Paddy Dow. Like look at what Alex Sin-Cotter did on, by the way, the commentators were calling him Chin Cotter. Where's the H in his name? And
I want to thank you for correcting me for our season preview. I thought it was Chin. I thought it was Chin. I wanted to ask you if it was Chin Cotter or Sin Cotter.
I've seen so many interviews, and all I keep hearing is Sin Cotter, and then all I heard on Friday was Chin Cotter, and I was like, "What the fuck's going on?" But yeah, he played it. He looks like an absolute find, and I reckon we need to persist with him. So I reckon potentially maybe somebody like a Lockie Cowan spend some time in the twos. But, he's a first-year player. We can look at doing that for him. But definitely need to keep Sin Cotter in the side. I think he's an absolute gem of a find. But let's get into the Saints, because I don't want to just harp on about Carlton and the negatives of Carlton, and some of the positives. But let's be honest, they're a defensive beast. They took it right up to you until the final siren and almost pipped you at the post. They got on top of us and then didn't let us anywhere near them once they got on top. They're just very, very hard to score against. Now, it's ugly. I do think it's a very ugly brand of football, and it can fall apart quite easily. We've seen it fall, and it can fall apart quite quickly as well. We've seen it happen in Freo seasons, in seasons past, where it's fallen apart because teams just work it out by, rounds 10, 11, 12, because Ross has the exact same game plan that he's had since 2008. He just modifies it. He changes it in little bits to fit the competition style, which is what makes Ross such a great coach, is that he can adapt the modern style into his game plan. But the problem is that he still has his old game plan as the base of it all, where that tends to fall apart more often than not now. So, like I said, St Kilda, defensive beast. Let's see if they can sustain it for the rest of the year. Not gonna sit there and not give them their flowers. Do think they had a great game against us, and definitely think they're just looking very cherry ripe at this point of the season.
You just got squeezed out wide. It was a big squeeze out wide. It was almost like you allowed it to happen.
I don't know if you've been watching a lot of our games, especially even the ones we've won. That's been where we've been wanting to go, has been down the wings and wide. Whereas the trend of the competition this year is up the guts. And it's been working for a lot of teams like yourself, Essendon, St Kilda. I mean, and it's funny, when we looked really good, again, we're going up the middle and we were catching St Kilda out. There was times in that game when we were still in the arm wrestle where we were making St Kilda look second rate. That second quarter from us was, some really good football. We were killing them in contested possession, and our midfield was just flexing their muscle. But once again, it was something that I mentioned at the start. The inaccuracy was what was killing us.
The avenues towards goal, that's a big talking point. When Harry and Charlie aren't firing, who's it going to be? That's why I've got question marks on your small forwards. I love Jesse Motlop, his intensity, setting the standards at training. But as far as hitting the scoreboard goes, hasn't done that yet. Obviously, it's too early. So Jesse Motlop gets a tick from me. Just other guys or other players, small forwards, players like Jack Martin, who's always injured with his calf. I do want to see that just Mosquito Fleet do well. That's something St Kilda's forward line is doing.
Yeah.
Their small forwards are killing it. Collingwood's small forwards, they didn't fire on Anzac Day, but typically they fire. Charlie Cameron fires. Tom Papley fires for Sydney. Toby Green fires for GWS. That's what Carlton need. You need an Eddie Betts. You need a Chris Young. You need a Jeffy Garlett.
Well, it definitely hurts that Matt Owies is out, because he was doing that in the first few rounds. The goals that we were getting early on in the season from small forwards were mainly, and Owies was helping get other players into the game. Like it's weird to rate Matty Owies how I actually did after the first few rounds, because as soon as he went out, actually look at the point he goes out and look at the small forwards and how the forward structure sort of crumbles a little bit, because he's the general with the other two around him. He's got Durds and he's got Motlop around him. So, and they sort of we're rotating in and out up the field. So again, it's crucial injuries to Carlton at crucial times that are just going to keep haunting this club, because like you said, Jack Martin can't get his calves right. Adam Sard went out with a hamstring. That's, I don't think, much to look into, but it's definitely still a concern. Mitch McGovern's injured every other week, which big news that he's now apparently gettable, and we're chasing Ben Mackay, which, okay, whatever. Another injured backman for another injured backman. So
I do have a few more things as well. Your midfield, no issues there. I don't think it's a Paddy Dow issue where it's, you got to bring him in. It's not a clearance issue. It's just you got to execute a little bit more. When guys like Cripps and Walsh and Shearer and Hewitt, Newman, he's down back though, getting disposals, but not hitting the scoreboard properly. The good sides do that. I've got Carlton I tipped them to be a top 4 side. I still think you're going to play finals, but you still need to figure out a few things. I think you will figure a few things out. I saw in this game Lewis Young playing more ruck than defense. Big fucking no-no. Love me some Lewis Young, but Mitch McGovern's not a better defender than Lewis Young.
Yeah, it's the fact that I don't know whether they're trying to convince Mitch to stay by letting him be the second fiddle, but then you're also, especially because Youngie's already put pen to paper. So who knows with what Voss is doing at the moment. I do think a lot of things are down to injuries. You got to remember Tom de Koning didn't play a single level of football this weekend, but was only managed apparently. So potentially he's carrying something as well. So there could be reasons for it. I know Pitto took a couple of big hits as well. So there could be a reason why you just throw Youngie in there for a little bit, even if it is just for a pinch hit. And he's probably the best pinch hit in the team because you don't really want to keep going back to Jack Silvani. What is success for Carlton? Like, who the fuck knows at this point? Because success last year may as well have been finishing 9th, considering we fucking had a decent year for the first time in like 20 years. You know, I don't even know. They've jaded the hell out of me, this team. I don't know how to feel anymore. It's funny. I was talking to Mesa. Mesa and I have this we can't talk to you about these things. You are unable to be spoken to about these things. So we just speak to each other in our own little chat about these things. And it's our teams. It's just always been, we don't know what we're going to get, especially for Mason was telling me even when they made the grand final a few years ago, he's just like, I didn't expect that. He's like, we've never been a consistent team. They've had the same sort of thing, and then they've had to go down the ladder at, inopportune times of, off the back of absolutely stupid decisions. And they're currently going down the ladder off the back of some absolutely stupid decisions. Carlton looks like a bunch of stars playing in a team that doesn't want to be a star team. And yeah, we just sort of find it funny that you don't get to understand this pain or anything like that. We're like, you can try to sympathize with us, but there's just no sympathizing with a Carlton or Freo fan.
In 2021, we finished 17th. I know how you feel.
Cool.
We spoke about Carlton and St Kilda for 20 minutes. I feel like North Melbourne and Gold Coast is for fucking 20 seconds. I don't
even know why I didn't even want to speak about Carlton. It's not even game of the round. There was so many better games that were on, and we harped on about a shit Carlton and St Kilda game. Suns versus North, 14-13, 97, plays 17-12, 54. Suns just did what they needed to do. Big negative is they've lost Took to a knee. How did they get the diagnosis for how long?
Yeah, so it's a lateral meniscus, and he's going to miss a good portion of footy. They've got no time frame. They reckon he'll be back this season, but they have no idea. So
end of the year for old Took. North's positives, it was Goldie's 300. So
300 gameroos for the Kangaroos.
We can't not love Goldie getting there. So it's great to see. I know he made a joke during the week that Harvey better start getting worried that he's going to get to 400. So we can only hope that Goldie can go for another 100 games. It's funny. He may as well be on the list when he's 45 and North still need a pinch hit in the ruck. They'll always have an injury at the ruck go down, and Goldie's just Mr. Reliable. They're negative, though. Sheasel got tagged on the weekend, and they did nothing about it. It's more like, I'm not expecting them to, we got to make sure that we also help tag somebody. It's more like they did nothing to support that kid. Like, they didn't put any bumps on. They didn't try to give him a chop out at all. They just let it happen. And he struggled, and it's a real shame because Suns have no sense of theater and just letting this kid run amok and have some fun with the year. Because let's be honest, I think it's a bit of a clear-cut race. Everyone's sort of saying that Will Ashcroft has a real chance to win it. And I'm like, yeah, Have you watched Harry Sheezel play live?
I thought up until this round, Sheezel was. Again, I'm joking about the rolling Australian. I thought Sheezel was in it. Given this performance, though, or being tagged out, no, he's out of it. And it's a 2-horse race for the Rising Star between Sheezel and Ashcroft. I don't think Ginby's going to get into that race just yet. And it's good to see Ben King kick a bag.
Yeah. But and for another negative for the Suns is, will he stay at that club? So, Collingwood chasing him, St Kilda chasing him, and the Suns looking to retain him. So, it's another negative that they've got to face, and more shit that essentially they've got to eat. So it'd be nice to see if they can retain King, but he's a as we love to say here on the podcast, a watch this space.
Watch this space. I think it's either he stays at the Suns or he's gone to the Saints. I don't think Collingwood's involved, unfortunately. We'd have to give up a lot for King. I do want to say, just with the Gold Coast, it's going to be a good little transition into the next game. If the Suns are legit, they'll beat Richmond next week. That's all I'm going to say. Speaking
of beating Richmond this week, D's versus Tigers, 15-6-96, plays 11-12-78. The D's are the fourth quarter kings, and Jacob Van Rooyen.
Van Rooyen, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, is an absolute star. But 5 goals to 1. They've had it's been a stat that's been very good for them this year, is their fourth quarters. I think it was last week they had a bit of a lapse against St Kilda. To be fair, in their bad games, it's one of their worst stats. In their good games, they pile on goals in the last 2 quarters. Negative from then, I still think, is Gaundy. I just more mean it's still the negative on that front is more that it's still going to take its time to work. I'm not saying it's a complete negative. It's just the fact that because of Gawn's injury, they've had a few games less already to gel and mesh. So that's where I guess I'm putting it as a bit of a negative, more not as a overhaul, it's a failure. It's more of they haven't had the time to develop yet because of the injury. So hopefully now that he's back, they get to gel a bit more. I know Gawn had an absolute ripper last quarter. And I know they won the hitouts and everything like that. But they were up against a battling Richmond ruck duo, and it was Ben Miller and Sam, our boys, essentially.
Your boys.
Yeah, the boys, essentially, just doing the work down for Richmond in the ruck, and they held their own. So you got to give them all the credit in the world there. But the Tigers, they let another one slip.
You want to speak about fourth quarters, Richmond? They're the opposite.
Yeah, they're starting to let some games slip for them in these last quarters. Now, I think you can start pointing at their injuries. It was pointed out to me that last week they had one AFL listed player in the VFL last weekend, mainly due to gather out, traveling and all that sort of stuff as well. But one AFL listed player in the VFL. They're really struggling with injuries at the moment. So it's a depleted Tigers side. It's not the Tigers side we're used to seeing of the last few years. But I mean, how good was it to see Dusty did what he did in the last, some of the magic that he can still produce. But unfortunately, for the Tigers, the D's, they just ran roughshod in the last 2 quarters as usual. They just find themselves when they find themselves on the better end of the last 2 quarters, they're almost unstoppable. They're a team that's if you can catch them out in the last, and grind it out with them, you've got a real shot. But yeah, definitely think that them getting on top of them in the 3rd and 4th was the key to winning this game.
But you got Melbourne, the emergence of Chandler kicking 3 goals, and Van Rooyen, who Goodwin said, Goodwin was saying with Van Rooyen they were going to they're going to sub him off at 3/4 time. Kept him on, kicks 3 goals. So Vietnam flashbacks with Richmond, with a key forward kicking 3 goals in a quarter.
He's really starting to stamp himself, this kid. He's going to make some big headaches for Goodwin when it comes to selection, which is great. That's what you're going to want when it comes to your big forward positions. Let's see if he can hold his position down for the whole year. He's worth holding up, and it's good to see Big Head play well. Big Head definitely did. He's putting together one hell of a season. I would love to see what his stat is for score involvements throughout this whole year. He'd have to be up there with, at least I reckon he'd be in the top 10 for score involvements this year. He feels like he's always involved in a Melbourne score in some way, shape, or form. If it's not directly, especially if it's not directly out of the midfield, because that's one of their big avenues to goal as well. Is they love a good midfield, 3-second goal. It feels like always Melbourne. So, not too much to harp on, I guess, about this game. It was a good game to watch, but it was just a game that Melbourne really ground out in the end against a depleted Tigers side.
I do have a positive for Richmond, and it was nice to see him be a lot more accountable in the midfield. Tim Taranto, I thought overall was the best player. I do understand, given the Anzac Day Eve game plus Anzac Day, you want to give the medal to the player who played in the winning side. So they gave the Jack Viney, but I thought Taranto played a little bit better than Viney or any other player on the ground. As far as Melbourne goes, just stocks down. A good comeback win for Melbourne.
Yeah.
But speaking of comebacks, got to mention Collingwood's win over Essendon.
All right, well, 13-12-90 plays 11-11-77. Pies get over the Dons. I'll let you take over and run amok, just like you did in the fourth quarter against the Dons.
I want to touch on this game a little bit differently. Now, remember round 3 we talked about the derby and the moments there. We talked about Good Friday with Carlton and how good of a day that was. I want to talk about Anzac Day for a bit and just the moments as well. And I want to not be so biased because I can mention quite a few Collingwood ones, but I'd be amiss to not mention Essendon because Essendon have played a part in a lot of major moments on Anzac Day. You may not give a crap. You're the Carlton supporter. What do you think about Anzac Day between Collingwood and Essendon?
I'm not going to sit there and just be like, it's shit on the day. Like, the day itself is great. I have a grandfather who's an Anzac, so not going to shit on the day at all. I'm going to shit on I shit on the two teams because I hate them playing, but it's not like I don't love watching Anzac Day football. Definitely something that's always fun to have on the calendar. You guys always, it's like I always have this theory, and I'll insert it just nicely into here. Carlton Richmond, anything can happen. Carlton Collingwood, anything can happen. Carlton Essendon, anything can happen. And this is also the same with all those other teams where it's like Collingwood, Essendon, anything can happen. Collingwood, Richmond, anything can happen. So on and so forth. Yeah. It's that every single year, it doesn't matter where you are on the ladder, Anzac Day always provides, actually I shouldn't say always, most of the time provides something special. It has its odd off game, but 99% of the time, it's always a great game to watch.
Well, it's, as far as crowd sizes go, it's the second biggest game. Home and away, definitely the biggest game, but it's always a few thousand off the grand final. And you're right, anything can happen. I don't think, as far as Anzac Day matches go, no side has won 4 in a row. I think it's always been 3 in a row, and then the next side wins. And it's always regardless of where they are on the ladder. Obviously, it's early days. Come later in the season, positions fluctuate, but who knows with these sort of games. And it came with this game here between Collingwood and Essendon. But I did want to touch on a few moments. No honourable mentions. I thought just a few random ones, common ones, good ones, some bad ones. There have been some bad ones, unfortunately. Just the very first Anzac Day clash, 1995, and being a draw. That, I think, we didn't expect it to be a draw. I wasn't alive.
You love a draw.
I love a draw. Sav Rocker kicking 9 goals. I think he kicked the goal with a few seconds left to tie the game. And we didn't expect it to be such a big, momentous occasion. And it's good to see how it's turned out 30 years later. A few key moments. I'm not going to go in order. Just a few moments here and there. Speaking of debuts, Mason Cox played his first AFL game on Anzac Day in 2016. Joined the First Kick, First Goal Club. I remember it. Darcy Moore, I think it was, kicking it straight to Cox. Demolition job that game, given it was Essendon's suspension. Speaking of second games, Mark McGough. Talk about cheeky boys. 17 years old in his second career game. 2002, winning the Anzac Day medal, wet weather specialist. And it was a coming-of-age performance for Collingwood, given Essendon were the best side of the last couple of seasons. Collingwood hadn't made finals since 94. So anything can happen, and that's exactly what happened here. Collingwood winning by 33 points and McGough winning the medal. And it's this sort of game that produces random best on-ground performances. I've put down, this one's not a random.
Not today.
Not today, but Joe Danaher, 2017. He's a very good player, but 2017 was his coming-of-age performance. That was the sort of game where Collingwood were making a charge, making a comeback. Bam, Joe Danaher kicks a goal, puts Essendon back in front, keeps the momentum going. Paul Medhurst kicking 7 goals in 2008. I love me some Paul Medhurst. Meso loves Paul Medhurst. Good former Freo player. Came to Collingwood. Didn't win a premiership, unfortunately. Didn't make the premiership side. But 7 goals on Anzac Day is good enough for me. Paul Seedsman, 2015, winning the Anzac Day medal. And we reward him at the end of the season by trading him to Adelaide. There has been some controversial moments on Anzac Day, and none more so than 2019. The booing of, I don't think it was directed at Scott Pendlebury. It was just more Essendon fans frustrated at the umpiring, but they had to take it out somehow, and that's what they did on Scott Pendlebury. That led to Nathan Buckley's "shame on anyone that booed a champion" comment. Didn't exactly drain out the boos there, unfortunately, but given the age of social media, and there was some contentious umpiring decisions, I'll admit that as a Pie supporter. Very lucky to escape that one. 3 or 4 calls. 2 of them, there were moments where everyone stopped and just thought the whistle went, but no. I do have to mention some Essendon wins as well, but I thought the best comeback wasn't today's one. I thought 2014, Collingwood Essendon, Dane Swan kicking 4 goals, Carl Hooker having some Vietnam flashbacks, trying to chase down Swan across the fucking pocket, given his previous history with Franklin a couple of years prior. I thought the best game ever was 2012, Collingwood winning by a point. Dane Swan, Anzac Day medal. That was the game in the lead-up. Mark Robinson called him fat, and Dane Swan admitted when he heard that comment, he had a hand in a KFC box. So, and that was the game. He kicked the goal and did the belly rub as well. There was the game where Brent Stanton kicked the goal to put him in front with a few minutes left. He thought he was that guy. Unfortunately, he wasn't that guy, as Jared Blair kicked the match-winning goal with a few seconds left. When I think of Anzac Day, I think of who's the best player to play on Anzac Day. I think of James Hird. 3 Anzac Day medals. Pendlebury's got 3 Anzac Day medals, but I think James Hird personifies the Anzac Day spirit. He's got back-to-back Anzac Day medals from 03 and 04. 27 disposals and I think 5 goals one year. Probably in terms of every single performance, that's probably the best individual performance on Anzac Day ever. Essendon, they've had some good moments on Anzac Day. I think of 2017, obviously Joe Danaher, but I'm sure you remember this one where McDonald, Tip and Woody chased down Hoskin Elliott. Never heard a crowd so loud for a ball decision.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Hoskin Elliott, so yeah, definitely.
You love that one.
Definitely.
But I think we can all admit the greatest moment in Anzac Day history has got to be David Zaharakis.
Zaharakis!
Australian Survivor, heroes versus villains contestant, David Zaharakis, kicking the match-winning goal with 6 seconds left.
We do love a bit of David Zaharakis.
I don't love him at all. I don't love him at all. What did he do in his career besides that?
He did that.
Fuck. But you have to give credit to Essendon. It was their best win on Anzac Day. Victory from the jaws of defeat. David Hill going down with injury early on. Paddy Ryder stepping up, winning the Anzac Day medal. No one expected that from him, and no one expected Zaharakis to kick his first goal in AFL footy to be a match-winning goal.
Zaharakis. Just what another great game to watch. I mean, it could have gone either way. I say that, but you absolutely steamrolled him in the last. Getting a new word over on this one, steamrolled.
The comeback
but
kings.
Yeah, Dacos basically made that game his own in the last quarter and just said, "Nah, we're winning this thing." He's an absolute star. I mean, are we at the point where we're going to throw our hats in the ring and start saying he might win a Brownlow? Because he's definitely got the votes there at the moment, I think. The only problem he'll have is the whole, as they say, he'll have people take votes off of him sort of thing. But I definitely think he's got definitely got a few threes in my book. So watch this space on potentially the youngest Brownlow medalist ever in history. He's having some sort of season at the moment. You guys love a heart stopper, don't you? I joke about Carlton loving a heart stopper. You love a heart stopper. How's your ticker doing, mate?
I was a bit annoyed. I wasn't annoyed at our performance per se. It's just Brad Scott and his side. It's a frustrating one if you don't get on top of them early on. They can do that to you. And I thought Essendon had it in the bag at 3/4 time, but
yes, I was actually going to say with where Essendon's at the moment, taking it to a team like you, the way they did, especially coming off a win against Melbourne, this is just stuff they can build off of. It's definitely something they can take to the bank and go, okay, didn't get the chocolates there. I don't think they're expecting to play finals this year, so getting the not getting the chockies, but being able to then go, you know what, let's take some key learnings out of this game. It's going to do nothing but make that side better. I mean, look at what it did for you. Like, you got to remember, I think before you guys went on the roll of winning some games, you had to lose some games by pretty close, not close margins, by under 20 points sort of thing. So, yeah, I think it's something that they can hold their head high and they can definitely build from this and start moving forward to be, I don't know, a better side in 2023 and to push themselves into that final spot and potentially even winning a final. So, I was definitely think they can dream big this year.
Do you think this is an Essendon side that can win a final, though?
If you would ask me a few weeks ago, I would have said no. But after watching that, you brought up a few points, in a few points where you say about the bottom 5 players. I always agree with that. Bottom 5 players make your team. If your bottom 5 players are playing well, your team's usually playing well. Their bottom 5 players at the moment are playing some really good football. So I think that's what's keeping them in good stead. And I think some of the other, when you look at it, they've actually got a lot of players that come back and actually just make their side better. So, definitely think this potentially could be the Essendon side that wins a final. I think they could dream big, but they got to get there first. And after being in that position last year, where, everything, because at the moment they're in a very similar position to us last year. Everything's looking rosy, new coach, new game plan. Everything's looking real good. Wait till teams start to find you out and wait till you have to adapt the game style, because that's when you're really challenged as a coach and as players. It's just this Collingwood team has, I think I sort of heard it after the games. They said this Collingwood team just they want to rip your heart out. And something the difference between what, like you said, the difference between your team and mine is that's what your team wants to do. And my team just wants to make finals. So at the end of the day, Collingwood just come along, do what they need to again, and keep their beautiful season rolling.
Collingwood was their 4th biggest comeback from 3/4 time in history. Their biggest comeback at 3/4 or at the MCG 3/4 time, breaking their record from last season against North Melbourne. So we are the comeback kings right now, but it can be frustrating to be down by that sort of margin at 3/4 time, when we shouldn't be down by that margin at 3/4 time.
It can be frustrating being on the other end of it.
Yeah. So
being on the other end of it and being up by that margin and then losing to you guys. So just think about that, mate. Just think about all the other teams. Think about all of us. Spare a moment. Moment of silence. So we spoke about this a little bit. It's probably not what you're going to expect. Commentator bias. I'm over it. I'm over listening to football on mute. I'm over to mates telling me they listen to football on mute because they can't handle listening to one team get selected early on in the game and all of a sudden all we want to talk about the whole game is this team. I think we need to start adapting other sports commentary styles. Other sports have three commentary teams. One commentary team is for the home team, one commentary team is for the away team, and one commentary team is neutral, where it's just talking. It's a lot more sort of like what you love, Nate. It's more stats based, and it's more things like that. Like they're talking more of the neutral ground of sport. They're not harping on one team, and then you get to listen to your own team get absolutely hyped up, even when they may not be playing the best football. And that's sometimes all you want, is to feel better about yourself while watching football, instead of listening to Luke Hodge tear your team apart for 2 hours because something happened to him, I don't know, 10 years ago against Carlton, and he doesn't know why he hates them still. The problem I have is that this isn't just a Carlton issue. I was listening to it happen today. I was listening to them for some reason because Essendon got on top. They just picked Essendon until the last quarter. All of us, actually, no. Sorry, I should take that back, because they still were cheering on Essendon through the last quarter. The only person they started cheering on was Dacos. So, to me, I'm over commentator bias. We need to start adapting the 3 commentary team method, and we need to start having a little bit of fun with our own, with our own teams. So, commentary teams, you've been arrowed. I'm back.
Let's go break some hearts.
You know what's funny? When we were coming up with this concept, we thought, all right, let's go through each club. Let's identify one boy in each club. I feel like we've covered this already for Richmond. We've done it last week with Bailey Banfield. And now we're going to do it for Geelong. Sam Simpson, or Sammy High Sock Simpson, taken
it's good to see him.
Pick 53 in the rookie draft, but he was a father-son pickup for Geelong in 2017. His very first game for Geelong was a draw. How can you not love him? Oh, he's got a bit of a history as well. It's a bit unfortunate with his injuries and also some form. But the biggest injury he's had was the 2020 grand final against Richmond. I reckon he got knocked out twice in that grand final.
I was going to say, who can forget that knockout?
Oh, he can forget that easily.
I mean, other than Sam Simpson.
I can't believe I did that. But it's an ugly head knock. He got knocked out in the air, and he got knocked out when he hit the ground. And he was out for quite a few minutes. But 20th game this past week against Sydney. First time in his career, kicked multiple goals. He was a laid in for John Segler. Good chance he's not getting dropped anytime soon. 603 days between drinks. Sam Simpson, Boys Club Award. You're welcome.
Something Mason always forgets to do. Call it out, Mason.
You remember this, pal? You're a boy in a man's world.
Bit of a tribute to Meso. He's not in this week, so I will cover his boy. I'll have to make it up to him at some point. But we are going out west. We're going to Freo. 2-club player. Someone well known in the podcast world. It's Tommy Sheridan.
Oi!
Pick 16 in the 2011 National Draft, first round draft pick. 83 games, 81 for Freo, 31 goals, just 2 games at GWS. Freo fans will remember him, unfortunately, for the 2015 prelim final, dropping a simple chest mark in the defensive 50, which led to Cyril Riola kicking a goal and for Hawthorn to run away with the game to win the prelim and make the grand final. I am sorry to mention that, but that's Tommy Sheridan. Very good podcast, Oz American Aces. Quite a few funny guests from time to time. He had Clayton Oliver and Jai Simpkin on a few weeks ago. Listen to that one in full. But check out his podcast. We're doing a weird fucking shout out for him at this point.
Sometimes we just end up doing shout outs because we just love the boy.
But Tommy Sheridan, Stepson Worry, Hall of Fame. We may write up a post for him on Instagram and tag him and see if he sees it.
I mean, he will be. We will be. Don't you worry.
We'll do a detailed write-up on him, but that's our latest induction.
It's cash time!
Wow.
Now, before we get into AEW, he wrestled Lee Moriarty on episode 8 of Honor Club. We're not going to pay to fucking watch this game or this match, but he defeated Lee Moriarty in 12 minutes 42 seconds. He did wrestle again this week at Northeast Wrestling Spring Slam 2023. I mentioned the event because it also had Ricky Starks against QT Marshall, Matt Hardy against Real One, or formerly known as Enzo Amore, and Powerhouse Hobbs with his AEW TNT title before.
Powerhouse.
Yeah. But Takeshita faced JT Dunn. Now, I think it was episode 2 that he wrestled JT Dunn in about 10 minutes. That was the match where there was This Is Awesome chants before the match, a shit commentator, shit angles, and a Fight Forever chant. I am so happy that it didn't happen here. They wrestled for nearly 20 minutes. This was a more detailed match compared to the last match. This Is Awesome chant at the very end, a much better commentator. Same style of match, just longer, but death, taxes, and Takeshita winning. But that's all for his matches this week. What exactly happened on Dynamite this week?
This was interesting to watch, and then we will use the word interesting because so Elite comes out, they're doing a promo, a very terrible one, mind you. It was awful this week. I go back and watch the Elite's promo. It's very bad. And then, of course, we get our beautiful DB, Daniel Bryan, a.k.a. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, over, it comes over the big screen and basically distracts him. BCC takes over, fights the Elite. They're about to put a screwdriver into Kenny's head. And then Don Callis comes out with a chair, and you're like, oh, okay, Don. And then Don then drops the chair and runs back up the ramp. And then what does he do? He comes out with our boy Takeshita, of all people. And he's like, Takeshita, go. And he shoves Takeshita down the ring. And surely enough, Takeshita gets in between Kenny and Danielson, and ended up striking Danielson and taking his place. It looks like in the Elite. Could be a swerve, we don't know, but at the moment, hanging out in the Elite.
I don't want him to join the Elite. I think he's a lot better solo. I do not want him to join BCC. We can keep the Takeshita watch, but if he joins BCC, I will not say a fucking word.
At least
I'll do what Freo fans did with Rory Lobb. I'll just turn my back every time.
I will say this though: if he joins BCC, at least he's going to be on television each week, and we're going to be able to talk about him each week. I think no matter what, he's heading towards more television by the end of this year, and we are pumped. I can tell you that much.
Push that boy.
But yeah, so he had a big week this week, and now he's definitely a watch this space for the next few weeks. So that is Takeshita watch.
It is. Next week, he teams up with Kenneth Omega to take on Butcher and the Blade.
Oh, I mean, why not? Yeah, I guess we leave it there for the week. We are the AWO Journeyman, JD, Nate, and retroactively Meso. He's not here this week, but shout out to you, my boy. Remember to follow us on Instagram at AWO Journeyman. Subscribe to our Spotify and YouTube. Also at AWO Journeyman. Like, share, and subscribe. All the good shit. And please, which you didn't do this last week, drink more water.